Hi everyone, welcome to a very, very special edition of the Diva Interviews with me, your host, Shar Bailey, and I use she and her pronouns. As you all know, it is Lesbian Visibility Week, so we are celebrating queer women of colour today. And I'm joined by some amazing guests who are here to authentically share their truth and share their stories. We are so privileged to be able to be out and have the privilege to use our platforms and our voices to inspire and connect with you all. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to start off with one of my sisters and good friends. Aisha, do you want to introduce yourself and take a couple of minutes to tell us who you are, your pronouns, and what it took to bring you here today?
Oh wow, that's an interesting question. But thank you so much for having me here today. And I love the fact that we have like a queer women of color panel. This is very, very exciting. As Shah said, my name is Aisha Shaibu. My pronouns are she, her. I do quite a few things. And I think one of the surprising things is a lot of people don't know I'm a research scientist. So I have been working in the science industry for so many years. But that's just my day job. I have loads of gay jobs, which consist of being the head of community engagement at UK Black Pride. But also, I do have my own company called Moonlight Experiences. It's a platform for LGBTQ experiences. And I realized that I could bring community and travel together so that we can like uplift queer women, non-binary, and essentially the cutie pop community. So basically, we're just harnessing like the economic power of tourism to uplift our community, to support our venues. So all the things that we are struggling with at the moment that we talk about, I'm trying to kind of create solutions for it. So now I'm glad to be here.
And that's why we love you. I think it's probably easier to ask you what you don't do.
Yeah, that is a good question. What don't I do? To be honest, just anything queer and anything for the community, I'm there for it. I'll talk a little bit later about my experiences. I think it's all kind of brought me to this place where now I'm in the position to want to make changes and kind of just try and do it the best way I think is possible.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here, and I'm so looking forward to you sharing more of your story. Amazin, welcome. Tell us why you're here, how you came to be here, and please let us know your pronouns.
Sure. My name is Amazon Letty, and my pronouns are she and her. And it's so great to have a woman of color panel, a space just for us to be able to share our stories and our collective interests and passions. I am a global LGBTQ advocate. I'm an athlete. I'm a published author, speaker. I'm the global ambassador for 6 organizations, including Stonewall UK, Athlete Ally, Vietnam Relief Services, Federation Gay Games, Copenhagen 2021, and most recently, Pride House Birmingham. I work with companies and I advise governments all around the world in terms of looking through the lens of sports when you talk about championing equality and the challenges and barriers that Asian LGBTQ people face. And most recently, I was part of the Team Biden campaign as one of their LGBTQ advisors.
Again, I'm just like, wow. When you're in a room surrounded by greatness, that it makes you just feel so empowered by the greatness around you. So, wow, thank you. And finally, but not least, of course, Kai, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you came to be here, and please let us know your pronouns.
Yeah, hey, I'm Kai Griffin. I use they, them pronouns. I am a non-binary intersex person of color, also very queer. And in terms of how I kind of ended up being here, I'm an actor. I play the character Ripley Lennox on Hollyoaks, who's the first non-binary character we've ever had on television. They're also queer, which is also just like we're hitting many firsts here. We're hitting many firsts. And I'm also a huge advocate for LGBT rights, especially the rights of other intersex people.
Wow. Can you see why you were all invited here and how magical this all is? And one of the reasons why when we thought about this panel and we thought about who we wanted to be here, we wanted to make sure that we tried to, as much as we could, represent as many intersections as we could. I am half South Asian, half Jamaican, and being that mix of cultures comes with its own sort of things to navigate, challenges, things to celebrate. But I wanted to come to you first, Amazon, because you are one of the only East Asian queer women that I know of visibly. And so for you, I imagine your journey might have been a little bit different, living in your skin. Can you tell us why sort of lesbian or queer visibility is specifically important to you?
I mean, it was very challenging for me growing up because I never saw an Asian person in the media, let alone an Asian LGBTQ person. And even when you think of, I mean, if you just think of UK television now, like in the last week of terrestrial TV, when was the last time you saw an East Asian person on TV? And then let alone an East Asian LGBTQ character. We just don't exist in so many spaces. And even if you look at global television, you know, LGBTQ characters around East Asian experiences are very few and far between. And for me, when I think of, you know, Lesbian Visibility Week being part of this panel discussion, I continually think of myself when I was growing up, and even now, of this lack of representation and how difficult it is to feel comfortable in your own skin if you just don't see yourself represented in the community, and how important it is for me to share my story because there are so few out East Asian women in the media.
You're definitely representing and doing the work, because, you know, you are so visible, and as you said, you know, you're an ambassador for 6 different organisations. That must be, you know, a stretch. So thank you for the work that you do. It's so enlightening to see you and to feel you and your presence here today. So thank you for bringing that. Aisha, I wanted to come to you because you, as you said, there's so many things that you do, but I know you best for your work at UK Black Pride because you are my chosen family. You're my sibling, and you know, we have that family there, and we are so privileged to have that family there because we recognise that there's a lack of that in the community going further. So I wanted to put the same question to you specifically. Why is this work so important to you as an individual?
I think, you know, I feel like the narrative is, you know, we're going to see a little bit of similarities, which is the lack of visibility of, you know, marginalized groups. I don't even want to say marginalized because none of us here are marginalized, but, you know, using that term, it's the lack of visibility, so to speak, of Black women, you know, in the media, but also for me growing up, even though I was born in London, I grew up in Nigeria and my family are also from Ghana. It's that kind of lack of awareness of, you know, ensuring that young people like myself can be queer, because I grew up, you know, within a Muslim family, and part of my family were also Christian, you know, and I was taught that homosexuality was un-African. It's something I couldn't be, you know. I could see it that other people could be, like other white people could be, but it's not something that I'm allowed to be. And I just couldn't, yeah, just navigating that was so difficult. And there are so many, you know, queer women like myself, like us, like all of us out there who are wishing and hoping that they could be represented, that they could have role models, you know, like us right now, who they can look up to. So this is why it's so important, why, you know, I'm more visible than I've ever been, you know, why I don't want to be, I don't know, left on the side, or people to kind of assume whether I'm queer or I'm not, you know, especially like for me within the travel industry, there aren't people that look like us either. So this is so important, and the work needs to, like, yeah, we need to kind of keep pushing and going on.
Well, I'm so grateful for the work that you do, and you are one of the people who's inspired and helped me grow in this work. So I can only hope for more and more and more. Key.
Yeah, I mean in terms of visibility for me, I think that that's the biggest thing that drives me to do the work that I do. I never thought that I would be a person who would be on people's TV screens.
I was going to say, you're on TV. That's kind of like the height of visibility.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about sort of being out and being queer and being your most self, and also being able to reflect that in a character? What do you love about it?
I think my biggest joy from playing Ripley, and also then just being a person in the media, actually like representing the people that we never saw, is the fact that I'm very into social media. It's part of my job, but I get to see how much it's helping other people. Like I get to see directly, like a lot of people who have pioneered in the film industry haven't had the use of social media in order to see the direct effect. And I feel very lucky to see people being like, you are helping me come to terms with my own identity. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I would have wanted. And I'm so happy that I can be that person for someone, because it's the person I desperately needed growing up and didn't have. So it's just beautiful to be that for somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's a sentiment of you can't be what you can't see. And, you know, you are literally, you know, exemplifying that, living that, living. Marzan, I wanted to come to you on this actually, because as we've touched on, representation for you, visibility for people like you is, you know, sort of, you know, really minimal. What do you think that, you know, allies or others members of the community can do to not only support you, but also to sort of champion and celebrate the people who do exist? Because, you know, it's not that you're not visible because you don't exist. So how can we bring you into the forefront more?
Sure. I mean, I think when we're thinking about the media, or, you know, campaigns that you're doing, or any types of projects that you're doing, or anything in terms of just your life in general, I always kind of say, you know, look at the image in front of you, think about the actors in the room, and is everyone at the table? So many times when I look at campaigns or TV shows or stories in the media or people doing projects, I think, has anyone actually looked at this and thought, is everyone at the table? Why does it look like, you know, why is it all white? Why are they all men? You know, is everyone at the table? And I think, you know, we don't have an excuse these days because we're so connected to the internet. If you don't know someone from that community, there's, you know, that 6 degrees of separation. You will know someone who is from that community. And I think, you know, in terms of allyship, you know, I'm Asian 365 days a year, just like I'm queer. It's about championing me as well when I'm not in the room, in terms of what is said, if it's like homophobic or racist or some kind of Asian slur. It's championing me when I'm also not in the room. And it's like discussions like this, you know, making sure, is everyone in the room? Are all the voices there as well? And I think, you know, we constantly have to look through different lenses, not our own lens.
The perspective is so key. One of the people who inspired me growing up was Lady Phil, because I didn't realise that Black people could be queer. I thought that it was, you know, something that white people did, and that if Black people did it, it was very, very bad. And if Asian people did it, or South Asian people, then it would bring shame on the family. And all of these sort of narratives have played a role in the way that I have hidden parts of myself from the world, shielded parts of myself, and also sort of in the revolution of that as well, in the saying, actually, well, there's nothing shameful about this, and there's nothing to be embarrassed at, and I want to celebrate this. So Lady Phil was really the person for me when I saw her in her elegance, in her opulence, in her queerness. I was like, wow, Black pride, a whole place full of Black people. And when I speak about her, she, you can probably see it on my face, I instantly, I'm filled with joy. I just want to quickly ask you all, who is that queer person for you that when you think about what they've done, what they've created, who they are, what they represent, who just instantly fills you with joy? And I'm just going to, whoever wants to answer first, because, you know, I'll let you decide.
You know, when I think of who fills me with joy, I think of Margaret Cho, because I think it's the same, coming from the Asian community, there's always this shame and failure about who we are. And I never thought that I could be an open, queer Asian woman. I actually thought as a child that I was the only Asian LGBTQ person in the world. And I just never thought there would be a day where I just could be myself in the public media. And then when I saw, you know, how you talk about Lady Phil is how I talk about Margaret Cho, that she fills me up with joy, that when I saw her being so unapologetic about being Asian, about being queer, about being active within the community and her activism, you know, in that moment, I can see myself and who I can become.
Wow.
I guess I'll go next. I think for me, I mean, it's no surprise, but again, Lady Phil has been mentioned again because I felt exactly the same as you two, same with Shah, of course. And I think for me, it's because within, you know, the African community, especially, there is the homophobia. I don't want to say it's different, but it is to a certain extent. We tend to be a lot harsher to our people. So seeing, you know, a Ghanaian woman like Lady Phil coming out as queer and being unapologetic and standing up for all of us and creating a safe space, a space for all of our community, I mean, that just kind of helped me kind of be visible and be more confident in terms of who I knew I always was. So that, yes, that for me, it has to be Lady Phil.
I'd say for me, and this might be a bit of the fact that I'm only 22 and I'm kind of a child, but India Moore has my heart. I absolutely love them. I love that they have been so unapologetic in telling their story, and I think as a person who I was very comfortable in my identity from a very early age, and I was very lucky to grow up in a family, in a mixed family where my mum had been very much shunned for just being a boisterous woman, and then to be told you should just be exactly who you want to be. But I think that the one thing I never ever felt, just from my family, was I never felt beautiful. I never looked at myself and thought, I can be queer, I can be non-binary, I can be intersex, and I can still be beautiful. I'm still allowed to exude that in the way that my body is naturally. And I think there is something about India Moore that reminds me that yes, I can be. And the fact that they are so unapologetic in their body, it just really speaks to me. And especially as just two brown people from mixed backgrounds, it really sits well with me, as the fact that I can be all of these intersections and I can still be an absolutely beautiful human being. And I'm allowed to think that about myself. So yeah, India Moore has to be. So much love for them.
Oh, you're so beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much in the room. Exuding. We talked a little bit about who is the people that inspire us to exist in the way that we exist. And there are going to be people watching this who know the people that we've talked about and might have seen them. And there'll be people watching this who know us and have followed part of our journey or our story. So for me, the main reason that I want to be visible is because I believe that in order for us to really grow and really be our most authentic selves, we have to be able to connect. And what I really struggled to do growing up in life was connect with others because of my queerness or my brownness or my Indianness or my Jamaicanness or whatever it was. I hid those parts. So for me, being visible about the fact that I'm queer and autistic and a lesbian and brown and black and whatever, got a big fro, being unapologetic and showing people that, you know, it doesn't matter. All of those things are worth embracing and are important. That for me is the reason why I do this work. I want people to look at me and say, you know, all of those things that are different aren't synonymous with worse. They're actually things that we can celebrate. So that's why I do this work. That's why I want to be visible. And that's what I want people to look at when they look at Char Bailey, who's being visible. That's what I want them to know. So what do you want people to know about you, about the reason why you do this work? If in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, there's another panel and we're not talking about Margaret Cho or India Moore or Lady Phil, people are talking about Aisha Shaibu and Amazin and Kai, what are they going to say about you? What do you want them to, what does your visibility look like? I'm going to start with you, Amazon, because I can see you're ready, poised.
Ready on the button. I feel like I should win a prize.
That's the athlete in you.
Yes, isn't it? You know, I think it's a revolutionary act when you see yourself for the first time and you hear your story for the first time and you realize that you're not alone. And when I think about the work that I do, particularly all my advocacy work as an ambassador and the discussions that I have locally and globally, I just think about myself when I was growing up and how I never saw myself and how Asian LGBTQ people still struggle so much in terms of living authentically and not seeing Asian LGBTQ representation, particularly lesbian and queer representation, and what that would have meant for me in my journey and the platform that I have today, and how by sharing my story, it would help just that one other Asian lesbian or queer person to feel comfortable and loved and celebrated inside, but also for them to be able to start to share their story as well, because they see themselves or bits of themselves in me.
Wow, that gave me a little chill. Who wants to go next? No pressure.
I'll happily go next. I do actually do what I do for a partially selfish reason. I'll be honest, like, I do what I do so I get to experience love in the way that I want to. Wow. Like, I am extremely lucky to be in a very healthy relationship with my partner, Sorsha, who is a non-binary lesbian, who is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And
big love, Sorsha.
And I think that selfishly, I want that love, and I just can imagine the fact that, like, to be able to then see someone, especially on television, on like mainstream national television, to see a queer character who does just generally kind of throw out a lot of love, and there's a lot of positivity thrown out by Ripley's character. It's just so I'm hoping that other people can also experience that sense of love within their queer relationships, because I am so happy anyone who else gets to do that and gets to be as happy as I am right now. I'm like, yes, please have it. I just want to share it. And that's why I do what I do. I just want to share the love.
Dishing out the love bombs.
Really handsome.
I'm here for it. Thank you so much and thank you so much for your authenticity and honesty. There is so much shame, especially around people of colour, We're told not to love ourselves in so many different avenues of life. We're told not to celebrate ourselves. We're told to be quieter and to be more humble. So the fact that you so unapologetically say, I deserve love and I do this so that I can feel some of that love, it's so beautiful.
And it's important. It's important. And I really like, if there's something that like anyone's going to take away from this, it is be unapologetic about the fact that you deserve to be loved and you deserve to be able to give love. You deserve to have that back and forth. Everyone does. No matter who you are, you deserve that. And we are often told we're not.
Absolutely.
I felt like I was going to start saying, like I was in a spoken word.
I was going to start clicking as well. I think I was like, just my hand was twitching. I'm trying to stop it.
That's what we do, but soul. We've got soul to this week. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. And I agree with you. That is a sentiment that we need a narrative that we need to push. We deserve love. We're valid. We're enough. We should be celebrated and we should be at the top.
Hell yes. No, I have to echo that as well, because I'm fortunate that I have a fiance, and you know, I can also be very visible and be in and be in love, and you know, get married to the person I want to get married to. But I think for me also it's the fact that I feel that in this world, in this life, because we're queer, we can often feel so alone and so isolated. And that for me is so sad, because we don't have to be alone. You know, we have people around us, or we should be able to have people around us. So for me, it's about filling a little bit of that void for somebody, knowing that I'm there for them, knowing that they belong, knowing that they don't have to be alone. You know, that's the one thing I like to make an impact on. Like, whether I get remembered for anything else, is I love to make people feel good. So if anybody like feels that way, then yeah, I feel like I've achieved what I want out of life in general, because I know what it feels like to be so alone. So yeah, we don't deserve that. We deserve love. We deserve happiness, regardless of our queerness or our identity.
I'm so glad that this is recorded, because I'm going to watch this back so many times. I'm going to share this with the youth of the world. There are so many golden nuggets in this conversation. I just want that to resonate for a minute, because how important must it be for the world, for us all to feel that, where we all long to love and be loved and connect and reconnect with each other. We've talked a lot about visibility and why we're visible and why it's so important, and the narrative and the choices that we've made. But what I want to know now, sticking on the topic of visibility, is a little bit about your journey in regards to what's going to happen next. We are here, we're queer, get used to it. We have Lesbian Visibility Week, Lesbian Visibility Day, we have Pride. But what's the future? What do we need from the community, our allies, ourselves? What's the next 5 years of being queer? What do we need? And I'm going to start with you, Kai, because I can see you nodding away. Your bandana is flipping, so I know you're ready. What's the future? You are the youngest of the group, the gaby, as they cut the phrase, the gaby, they be baby. What's the future?
For me, it is creating more inclusion. I think that is the real buzzword I always kind of leave people with, is that we need to include as many people who need us in our groups as possible. It's a huge honor for me to even be invited here as a person who doesn't identify as a lesbian, but definitely has. I definitely everything about the lesbian community resonates with me as a person who has experienced misogyny in the same way, doesn't want to appeal to the male gaze in the same way. And I think it's really important that we continue to make these spaces inclusive, and we continue to invite more people into these spaces and include more opinions and more voices, so we can support each other. It's all about support, and the more support we can bring to each other, the better we're all going to feel, and hopefully the better all of our like legal, medical, like just our social lives are all going to get better. Mm-hmm. So let's just continue to support each other, and to do that we need to be inclusive.
Love it. Taking that one as a note down for the future props. Martin, what about you? What's the future visibility look like for you?
I think for me, it's, you know, when I think continuing to amplify Asian LGBTQ voices, because we are just so, we're a minority and a minority within the community, and, you know, our stories aren't as visible as they should be, particularly when it comes to the narrative in the media. And for me, also supporting LGBTQ youth as well, and the work that I do in sports in regards to being an ally to the trans and non-binary community, because I think we've seen, particularly during the pandemic and particularly in the US, around exclusion around trans and non-binary youth in sports, and these discussions around, you know, when we really look at it, it's a 6-year-old child that just wants to play sports and kick a ball with a kid, and we're spending all our energy and hate around a child. And I think we just have to be such better allies to the trans and non-binary community, and, you know, particularly, you know, queer and lesbian women. We really need to check in on ourselves in our inherent bias and our behavior as well. And I think the pandemic has given us an opportunity for us all to take stock and check and think, you know, what kind of brave new world do we want coming out of the pandemic? Because, you know, for us, this is the next 5 years going ahead, and it can't be the same as the last 5 years.
Absolutely. So we need to check ourselves to make sure that we are including everybody. And I think that's so true when it comes to what we ask of society. We ask society to ask themselves questions all of the time. We ask them for acceptance. We ask them for understanding. And how much of that do we ask of ourselves? So, you know, turning inwards before we, you know, look to the world for those sort of things. Brilliant. Love that takeaway. Thank you. Last but not least.
I have been thinking about this for a while now. And I think for me, over the next 5 years, I just want us to be that bit more closer to equality. And, you know, when we talk about that, what does that look like? And honestly, it means money. We need, you know, Black and POC voices and people to just have more money. How do we fund things so that we can upskill marginalized groups? What do we do? For example, I mean, LGBT spaces. You know, why is it that we don't have enough queer women's spaces owned by Black or POC or brown people? Why is that? And how can we change that? Because I honestly believe as a community, as queer women, we can make that change. But also, I think for so long, we've relied on nightlife, you know, to kind of give us a space of belonging. You know, COVID has taught us, if not anything, our well-being and health is so important. We don't have to only have spaces surrounding alcohol, you know. So this is why I'm working with a few allies to open a sober queer cafe in Shoreditch, which will be coming soon. How can we get people so that we can have solutions for us? So that it's not difficult for our community to book spaces, to be able to have these conversations, not just, you know, on 1 week, but all year long. How can we belong a little bit more? And who can we bring into our group to help advance these things? And these are the things I've been thinking about, because honestly, you know, we can talk and talk, but we need to start having solutions and getting those who can help us fund that as well. So hopefully in the next 5 years, if we have this conversation, we'll be that step closer to
More
achieving
money,
it.
less problems.
Right. At the end of the day, you know, we do have so many intersectional issues. We are suppressed for so many things. And, you know, we can't get away from the fact that money talks. Money does make a difference. But how can we introduce that into our community so everybody has that bit more to do the things they need to do?
I feel I need to start clicking my fingers.
Yeah.
on that one.
But I just, wow. I am so happy to have been able to spend this time with you all. I feel like the nourishment that happens to my soul when I spend time with queer people who understand what I'm saying, understand where I'm coming from, understand where I'm trying to go, and want to walk beside me. I feel so overjoyed that you all took the time to be in this space. And I'm just going to give you just a final, if you've got anything that you'd like to say to the queer people of colour, the queer lesbians, the queer young women, the queer young non-binary people questioning the smaller versions of yourself. If there was one message that you wish that you could have heard, if you could have watched a panel like this, what would you have needed to hear? And it can be a sentence or a word, or even just a smile if you like. I'll start with you, Kai.
I just want to make a note of the fact that intersex people really need allyship right now. And the lesbian community is one of beauty, because the lesbian community has never been a community that wants to be told what their bodies should look like. And that is the struggle that intersex people are facing right now. So if you want to get involved, please do. You can follow the organization. I'm a trustee for Intersex Equality Rights UK, and please, we need the allyship right now. And also, just go and be loved and give love. It will make your life so much better. And that's where we'll end for that.
Wow. Aisha, do you want to go next?
Sure, I wasn't ready. I was just like taking it all in terms of what Kai was saying. I was just like, no, I think for me, if I could say one thing, it would be the fact that be yourself. I mean, I know that is like a very difficult thing to say, but be yourself and live for who you are and who you want to be. Don't care about what anybody says or what they think of you, because honestly, just focus on your life and be happy. That's all I need to say.
Last but not least, never least.
You know, I would say, you know, you are loved and celebrated. You are part of a larger community, and that you're always enough. And, you know, I live my life as an unapologetic Asian queer woman. And, you know, you should as well, because you'll be far more successful when you show up as yourself than the energy, particularly the mental energy that it takes to continually hide bits of yourself. And, you know, when you bring your whole self to work, when you bring your whole self to life, when you bring your whole self to the game, you know, you will be so much more happier in life, and you'll be obviously so much more successful as well.
Wow. Well, if you're at home watching this, listening to this, then I hope that you feel as inspired as I do now. You'll be able to watch this recording back on the Lesbian Visibility website, as well as the Diva Facebook group. I'd just like again to thank my amazing panelists, and to remind you all that this week we are celebrating ourselves. So celebrate yourself. Remember that you are loved. Trust yourself. You are enough. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you soon, and have an amazing Lesbian Visibility.